wife and stepdaughter wanted to move into her ex's house, but I refused because I wasn't comfortable with the idea, so they left me for weeks. Now they are back, but it's too late. My wife, let's call her Allison, and my stepdaughter, Hannah, have been living with me for the past 3 years. Allison 42F. And I 46 meters. Started dating 5 years back and got married 2 years ago. Hannah is 16, and Allison has had full custody of her daughter ever since. She got divorced, which was 12 years ago. Allison and her ex were high school sweethearts, and they got married as soon as they graduated college. But according to what Allison told me, things were just not meant to be with them. Her ex was very ambitious, and after they got married, he started taking her for granted and rarely ever spent time at home. She tried marriage counseling as well, but that did not change anything, and they ended up getting divorced. So after 6 years of marriage, she decided to put an end to it and also demanded full custody of their daughter because she didn't think that he would be up to the task of raising her on his own when she was not with him. And she was right, so he did not contest it either, and settled for visiting her on the weekends. Then about 3 years after the divorce, Allison decided to move away for better opportunities, and that's how she ended up with me. She got a job here where I'm from, and it is just a 6-hour drive away from her hometown, so she can visit her parents whenever she wants to, and her ex can come see their daughter on the weekends too. Her decision to move away had not been received kindly by her ex, because naturally, that would make it more inconvenient for him to see his daughter, and their relationship had become even more bitter after she moved here. Then the last nail in the coffin was when she married me. And after that, he pretty much did not have anything to do with her, unless he wanted to speak about Hannah. So it was not surprising that he had not left her anything in the will, but it only included Hannah in it. Allison and I had been expecting this, since their relationship had not been towards the end. When her ex was first diagnosed with problems in his heart, she had tried to bury the hatchet and be there for him, but he had rejected her attempts to be his friend. So she did not try harder either, because it was very obvious that he didn't want her in his life. And so we tried to maintain our distance from him in the last stages. But after we received the news that he had left the house to Hannah, she and Allison started celebrating, which didn't really make sense to me because we already had a place to live, and that was my home here. The house that her ex had left was all the way back in their hometown, and they were talking about moving into the house, which was not something that I was comfortable with, and made it known to them, which is what started this entire fight. The day that they found out from the lawyer that Hannah was going to get ownership of the house when she turned 18, she and her mother immediately started planning their future and talking about what they were going to do with the house and how they were going to renovate everything. They had received a bunch of pictures from the lawyer, and I could see that it was a lot bigger than the house that we were currently living in. But this house is mine, and my entire life was based here. So before they could let their imaginations run away, I decided to burst their bubble. And I told them that I was not comfortable with the idea of moving to this new house and leaving everything behind. That surprised them a little. I don't know why, because they should have seen this coming. Allison tried to convince me to sell the house and move with them to their hometown because for the past couple of years, she had been living here and she really missed her family and her old friends. She had spent so many years with me. It was my own to make some sacrifices for her and move with them. I thought that it was kind of unfair for her to make that comparison because when she moved here, she didn't even know that she was going to meet me. She had moved here for herself, not for me, and I brought that up with her, but she just got ticked off at me. She and Hannah had pretty much made up their minds that they wanted to move, and since they had already come to a decision, they didn't want to hear me out, but just wanted to convince me to move with them. We argued back and forth for a couple of days, but eventually they just told me that they were going to go check out the house and live there for a couple of days to test everything, and if I wanted to come, then I was welcome to do so. But if I didn't, then they would also not wait for me. After saying that, they left. And it was really hurtful for me because I felt like they had abandoned me just because I did not want to move into that house. If I'm being honest, one of the major reasons that I was not comfortable with moving there was because that house used to be Allison and her ex-husband's old house when they used to live together. Apparently, he had repurchased it a couple of years ago when he had the money. And even though he hadn't lived in it, he owned it, and it was probably for sentimental reasons. I would feel like an intruder if I lived there. And most importantly, all my family and my friends lived here. And I did not want to leave them behind. My business was also based here, so it would be quite a hassle for me to leave everything behind anyway. A few days after they were told about the house, Allison and Hannah packed some of their things and took off without me. When I told them that I was not interested in seeing the house, I was quite upset when they left, but I tried very hard not to let them see it because I didn't think that they would care in the first place. It was not until after they had left that I finally allowed myself to break down. And then I spoke to my parents about what had happened. And even they did not have a solution to offer up for me. They had told me that they would be gone just for a few days. But almost 2 weeks passed and I did not hear back from them. Not only had they left me, but they had pretty much stopped speaking to me altogether after we had that fight, and that's what really broke me. I had thought that after they would come back from their trip back home, I would speak to Allison and I would try to sort things out with her. But after almost 10 days had passed without any contact, I started rethinking my decision. On the 12th day, I finally contacted my lawyer. And I told them that maybe it was time to draw up the divorce papers because I couldn't think of any other way out of this. Thankfully, my lawyer is a really old friend of mine, and he told me to at least speak to Allison when she came back, or call her up before filing for a divorce. So I decided to wait for her to come back, so we could at least talk and give a relationship one last chance before giving up on it. And 2 days after that, she finally returned with Hannah in the evening, and both of them looked really hassled. I let them in and allowed them to talk to me, hoping that maybe they were here to apologize to me for everything that happened. But instead, she just told me that they had decided to put the idea of moving into that house on hold for now because there was a lot of work to be done, and that the pictures the lawyer had shown them had definitely been from a really long time ago. Because when they saw the house in person, it was nothing like that for a good few minutes. They continued to talk about the house and nothing else, and the longer they spoke about themselves, the worse I felt because, like a fool, I'd let them in expecting an apology. Or at least, I had expected them to acknowledge that they had screwed up. Apparently the house was in really bad condition. None of the amenities were in working condition. There were a lot of bats and bird droppings all over the floors. Several mice and other animals had made their home in the house, and worst of all, there seemed to be a serious termite problem. Everything was really dirty, and it was very obvious that nobody had been taking care of the house in the absence of the owner, her ex. So that was part of the reason why they couldn't move in just now. And even for the 2 weeks that they had spent there, they had to live with Allison's parents. The only reason they did not come back after the first night itself was because they were speaking to the lawyer and trying to find out whether they would be able to get ownership of the house before. And unfortunately, there was no clause for that in the will. And until then, the lawyer was going to handle the trust for her. And only after Hannah turned 18 was she going to legally get the ownership of the house, and then she would be able to move in whenever she wanted to. For 2 weeks, discussions had been going on between Allison and the lawyer because she wanted to move in as soon as possible, preferably by the end of this year. But that was just a few months ago, and so far even the will itself was under probate. And that's why they had decided to come back home, because clearly it was not the right time for them to move in. After they explained all of this to me, I told Allison that it was nice that she finally had a place to live, because as of now, I was no longer interested in living with her anymore. I told her that she had been really hurtful and disrespectful towards me and my feelings, and she hadn't even bothered to apologize for any of it. So I wanted her to leave. She was shocked when I said that, and told Hannah to go to her room so we could speak in person. And once we were alone, I told her that I had only let her and Hannah in because I was expecting them to apologize. I could still excuse Hannah because she was just a kid, but Allison was a grown woman and she knew what she was doing. The only reason she had bothered to come back to me was because the house was not livable. Right now, if the house had been in good condition, she would not have bothered to come back to me, and we would probably be getting divorced right now because I wouldn't change my mind about moving. And from the looks of it, it was pretty apparent that she wouldn't either. So now, keeping that in mind, I thought that it was better for us to part ways right now, then wait for the future and go our separate ways. Eventually, she started yelling at me immediately when I said that, and told me that I was being unreasonable and stupid. She told me that I was the one who wanted to divorce, and I was ready to give up on our marriage and relationship over something so petty, and that meant that I was the one who was not serious about us. Once again, she brought up how she had spent so many years living with me, close to my family and friends, and the least that she could expect from me was to spend at some time in her hometown with her family and friends, so she could be close to them. But I had let her down, and that was really selfish of me. And now, because they refused to be apologetic for something that was not even their fault, I was threatening to leave her and kick her out. I tried to argue with her, but she was not having any of it, and she just kept on screaming at me. She called me a horrible human being for not understanding her feelings, and then pretending like she was the villain here. And even said that I was a crybaby because if I couldn't even man up and be there for my wife and daughter, then that's what I deserve to be called. Lastly, she told me that if I really wanted her and Hannah to be out of my life, then they would gladly leave. But she just wanted me to know that the way I was behaving was really cowardly and selfish. Selfish because, of course, I declined to move to her hometown with her, even though she had stayed here in my city for a really long time. But I don't think that's the same thing at all. But it was very cowardly because apparently she believes that I should have been there for her and Hannah. But I was so caught up in my feelings that I didn't even care about theirs. And just because I couldn't handle the fact that they had different opinions, I was trying to make them look like the villains in myself. The victim. She already had her backpack when she had come back. So all she had to do was grab Hannah, and then the two of them left. I didn't have the heart to contact them after that, but I know that they are staying with a friend of hers right now. Her friend contacted me to let me know that they were there, and that both of them were really irked at me. So if I wanted to make things out, I'd better do it quickly too. Days have passed since, and I haven't been able to do anything quickly because I just don't even know what to do. I'd for wanting to leave my wife because she wants to move back to her hometown now. Update 1. Okay. So I went through the comments, and thank you so much to everyone who took the time to leave a comment and give me some advice after reading these comments. I decided that I was going to take some more time to think about what I really wanted to do, because whatever I said in my previous post was all true. The house had been in a better condition then. They had been able to work something out legally. I don't think that Allison and Hannah would have come back to me, and that's what's really been bugging me. The fact that they wouldn't have come back to me if things had been perfect in another place. I don't want to be a backup option for them, if that makes sense. And obviously, I'm not holding anything against Hannah. She's just a kid. I've watched her grow up for the past couple of years, and she still has a lot of growing up to do, so I'm not mad at her in the slightest. But with Allison, that's a different story. She's a grown woman, and right now, I don't really know what to make of her. She thinks that I am blaming her and making her out to be the bad guy, but I think that she's doing the same thing to me. And I feel like she's gaslighting me into believing that I'm the villain here. She's constantly been invalidating my feelings, and the fact that she called me a crybaby and a selfish person, and a coward and whatnot. It's just been really hard to deal with all of this on my own. I don't really understand how to deal with the situation, and I do feel sorry for all of us right now, because for the past couple of years, we had been one happy family, but right now, I can feel that family breaking apart. It's not like I wanted it to happen, but it's not like I have a choice in this either. She disrespected me, and if she comes back and genuinely apologizes to me for everything, I'm ready to make it work. I really love her and I genuinely care for her, and I do anything to bring this relationship back on track again. But she has to take the initiative and at least try to let me know that she still cares, as well from the looks of it. It doesn't really feel like that. Just like what happened when she had left initially. She hasn't contacted me at all and is pretending like I don't even exist. The last message that I have from her is from over 2 weeks ago, before any of this even started. And after that, neither she nor Hannah has spoken to me. So I don't know what to do anymore. I want to make it work, but she has to want the same thing as well. Until then, we're just gonna be stuck here. Update to So it's been a week since my last update. In this afternoon, Allison and Hannah came back again. Once again, I was foolish enough to expect that they were probably here to make things right with me. But when I opened the door, Allison told me that they were only here to pack the remaining things that they had left here. They had even brought along a pickup truck and a friend to help them back. So I knew that they were serious. I was really upset because I just kept waiting for Allison to talk to me, to at least give me a sign that maybe things were not as bad as we thought and we could still fix our marriage. But instead she was ready to give up so easily, and so I decided to speak to her in private. And I told her that I was really disappointed by the way she was dealing with things. We had spent quite a few years together, and I thought that we were stronger than this, and I couldn't understand her behavior. She just sounded very resigned when she spoke to me, and she told me that she was sick of fighting with me as well, and it was not like it brought her any joy to be leaving me like this. But she also believed that I owed her an apology, and I knew that if I tried to argue with her on that, we would get stuck in the loop again and end up talking in circles. Because she believed that I owed her an apology for not being there for her, and I believed the same thing. But for her, so instead of going down that road again, I told her that whatever had happened was done now, and the only thing that we could do was at least try to move on. But we owed it to each other to give our relationship another chance, and a real fighting chance at that. I thought that she was going to agree, but instead she told me that she was very disappointed that things had turned out to be like this. But after everything that happened, she didn't think that giving our relationship a chance would work out, because ultimately she wanted to move back to her hometown and be with her family and friends. She was sick of living here, and in a couple of months, she was planning on moving back. So it wasn't just about the house. She actually planned on going back, and the house has just been a catalyst for her decision. I'll have to admit that caught me off guard, because I really assumed that it was going to be about the house and not about wanting to move back. I couldn't promise her anything either, because I didn't know if I was ready to move to her hometown with her, and I didn't know if I would ever be ready for it. So when she told me that this was a real reason, she hadn't bothered to reach out to me in the past couple of weeks, because staying with her parents for those 2 weeks ahead made her feel like she had been missing out on a lot of time with them, and she wanted to be closer to them, and she knew that I wouldn't want to move back with her. She had fought with me, she had ended up trying to hate me. But she couldn't bring herself to do that, because she knew that even I had a point. If I'm being honest, I honestly just believed that she wanted to move back because of the house, and it was just a phase. But hearing her confess that she actually wanted to move back because she wanted to be close to everything that she knew, it made me feel like maybe I misunderstood her. And it was not just a spur of the moment, impulsive decision. I honestly believed that we would end up fighting again. But when she spoke to me about it, I really tried to understand where she was coming from, because I was sick of fighting with her as well, and I didn't think there was any point in arguing with her again. And again, that was just going to hurt both of us. She even asked me if I would be willing to consider moving back with her, and I told her that I would need some time to think about it, because so far I had been under the impression that maybe this was something that I could talk her out of doing. But obviously, that was not the case. When I said that, she told me that she understood, and that I was free to take all the time that I needed, but eventually we would have to decide what we wanted to do. Then she returned to packing, and all I could do was just sit and try to process what was going on. Even when she was leaving, she told me that I still had time to think about what I wanted, but she was not going to change her mind, and if I couldn't deal with it, she would be fine with that as well. It was a lot today, and I found myself wishing that I hadn't opened the door to let them in, because otherwise I wouldn't have found out about any of this. And I think being angry at her was much easier than trying to understand and cope with this situation. But anyway, now that I know what's going on for sure, I have to think about what I want, and I have to think about what my priorities are. It's been messing with my head. But I know that I'll have to come to a decision eventually, and it's going to be hard. No matter what I decide, I'll be the one having to make some sacrifices. And regardless of what I sacrifice, it's still going to hurt me. So needless to say, I'm in a very complicated situation right now. And my position is not easy since I have all of my family, my friends, and even my work here. I know that I'm rambling, but I honestly don't know what to make of this situation anymore. Update 3. So after thinking about everything for 3 weeks, I finally reached out to Allison and told her that I would not be moving back to her hometown with her. It was not an easy decision for me by any means, but I had to do what was best for me. And like I said in my last update, all my friends, all my family, and even my work are here. And I can't sacrifice everything. Even if I tried to come back every weekend here, I still couldn't think of a way I could make it work with my business. And I have dedicated quite a bit of my life to building this business. From the ground up, I have a lot of employees who are relying on me. So I can't just hand it over to somebody else. I can't sell it to somebody and just move. So with a heavy heart, I had to decide against staying married to Allison because she deserves the freedom to live her life the way she wants to, and so do I. When I told her about my session after 3 weeks of no contact, she seemed disappointed but did not fight with me. She told me that she understood and that she wished me all the best for the future, but she hoped that I would forgive her and understand where she was coming from as well, and I really do. It must not have been easy for her to live away from her family for so long, but the only reason she had left her hometown in the first place was because she wanted to make a life for herself, away from everything that she knew, away from her comfort zone. She wanted some independence and freedom, and she had already got that. But now we were both at an age where we wanted comfort, and it was natural for her to want to return to her comfort zone. We spoke about it and decided that we were going to file for divorce on mutual grounds and end this marriage amicably. But before that, we had to think about what we wanted to arrange for Hannah because she had apparently been very upset about having to leave me behind. So far, Allison had told her not to contact her because she was not sure about what I wanted, but now she asked me, and I told her that I would love to have partial custody or at least visiting because Hannah is somebody that I watched grow up for the past couple of years, and I would really like to have her in my life. With Allison, I can't help the situation right now. But I don't want to let go of Hannah as well, since I'm quite attached to her and I think of her as my own daughter. I hadn't reached out to her so far because I didn't think it would be appropriate without speaking to Allison first. But now that both of us are on the same page, we are going to think about what to do. And before that, I'm finally going to meet Hannah after a really long time now. Update for So High. I just came back after meeting Hannah and Allison, and my heart is so full right now. I posted my last update 3 days back. And since then, I had just been trying to focus and process the fact that I was going to get a divorce, and Allison was no longer going to be a part of my life. I thought that I had accepted it, but the more that I thought about it, the more I regretted it. I guess speaking to her about it just made it very real. But I couldn't go back on my word, so I had to just suck it up and prepare myself mentally to see her. But the second that I walked into her friend's apartment, where she had been staying, I kind of broke down, and so did she. And I realized that this was the reason that we had been staying away from each other. Because we knew that the second we saw each other, we wouldn't be able to hold back. Because no matter how much I wanted to resent her, I couldn't because I still loved her. And I guess so did she because as soon as I saw each other, we ended up crying and hugging each other because it had been so long since we last met one another. She instantly told me that she had made up her mind, that she was going to move back to her hometown, to be closer to her friends and family and her old life. But now she wasn't so sure anymore. I was so glad to hear it because finally we were on the same page. And she had been there to take the initiative to say it to me. After a lot of tears and hugging and making up, we decided that we were going to put all our plans on hold and just go for marriage counseling. If there was still a chance that we could sort out our differences and make this marriage work, I wanted to take that chance. I'd actually only gone over to meet Hannah, but I'm glad that I was able to sort things out with Allison as well. She is still staying with her friend, but she will be all packed up and ready to move back tomorrow, and I can't wait for her to come back. Hannah obviously is thrilled that we are not separating and has decided to give our marriage a second chance. But of course, we can't overlook the fact that all of this stemmed from the fact that Allison had been feeling very distant from her family, and so we have decided that we are going to try and see them every week and not once every 2 months. We are not going to make excuses for ourselves. And even though we are really busy with work and stuff, we need to make time for the ones that we love. And that's a lesson that we have had to learn the hard way anyway. I'm just really happy that we are going to try and make it work because I really love her, and it's very soothing for me to know that it's the same for her as well. Hopefully counseling is going to make everything better.